Welcome to The State of Us.
Beyond mainstream cable news and party lines, with a millennial and a boomer, The State of Us pushes past the noise and uncovers all the issues that matter.
Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
As post-pandemic life becomes a reality, restaurants are set to roar, well, sorta, back. But they're going to look different. Smaller menus, merch stores, healthcare for workers. What's become of what the friendly redneck liberal once knew as a restaurant? Well, they're going to look different. That much is for certain. Today, we're going to talk about the ways that they're going to be different, what you can expect. And this is based on conversations with chefs, restaurateurs, and industry experts, their predictions about what you can expect going forward in the restaurant business. We're also going to talk about if you're looking to buy a used car, you better expect to pay a lot. You might be better off buying new if you can figure out how to do it. Prices are way up, all-time high in April of this year for used car prices. And we're going to look at what that means not only for the used car industry, but also the new car industry and the economy as a whole. There's a lot to talk about today, but of course, this conversation on restaurants and cars, I think two of this gentleman's favorite things, would not be complete without
True Chat senior historian and an educator of more than 30 years. Here is your friendly redneck liberal, Lance Jackson.
Well, I buy both food and cars because of the hospitality that I'm given. So that's our word of the day. Hospitality, Hospitality. And when I look it up in my Webster's Collegiate Dictionary, hospitality, it says the solicitous entertainment of guests. So if you're like the friendly redneck liberal, I had to look up solicitous to know what kind of entertaining I was getting. And solicitous, S-O-L-I-C-I-T-O-U-S, means showing care, attention, or concern. So it means showing care and attention to your guest is hospitality. And that usually determines whether or not I go back for another visit, be it to a restaurant, whether it's pick up, fast food, pizza, sit down, or where I buy my vehicles. What kind of service am I getting? So to me, hospitality is huge when someone's asking you to spend your money.
This article is from the Wall Street Journal. It's linked at thestateofus.org, so you can check it out for yourselves. But they actually acknowledge that right at the beginning that, at least according to several famous chefs, what we all want is hospitality, right? I mean, that's part of why you go to a restaurant versus eating at home is the experience, the service, right? The hospitality, hopefully. And part of the experience, of course, naturally is the food any good? And some of those things are what we have to look at changing, but the whole experience is changing. And that includes things like, first up, digital check, right? From mobile apps for fast food chains to newly implemented online ordering options for independent eateries, an increased digital presence will endure. And that includes paying by app or QR code instead of a paper bill. I can confirm, having been to many restaurants, both in a larger metropolitan area here in Ohio and both in small town Urbana, Ohio, where we record from, this is happening. Whether or not we like it, whether or not we're happy with it, it's just what's happening. It may be a little more inconvenient for us as consumers, but I think part of the reason it's happening is because it is easier for restaurants.
The more of the work I have to do, the less enjoyable the experience is. Part of the going out to dine is the interaction between you and the wait staff and the servers. And that usually determines my tip. And I usually tip somewhere between 20 and 30%. So I'm a pretty good tipper. I think, I don't know, they always say 15%. If I leave a 15% tip, it's because the service was horrible. Well, if you're taking out the number of times that you're going to see me and talk to me, I'm not going to enjoy my experience. And if I'm not enjoying the experience as much, I won't tip as much. However, the article points out, just to show you that your friendly redneck liberal is not like anybody else, the digital check is actually showing that tips are 4% higher, which I find totally amazing. And the table turnovers are 5 minutes faster. That makes sense. Because obviously, as it says in the article, The last 5 minutes when you're waiting to pay are the least enjoyable part of the experience, says the owner. Yeah, well, I don't agree with that, but I enjoy those 5 minutes. It's a chance for me to get my keys out. It's a chance for me to make final conversation with the people I'm with. If it's my wife or my children, it's like take one last sip of your drink, talk about what you're going to do next. It's all part of the experience. But in this rush world where my time is so gosh darn important that, nobody's relaxing. If you're along, if you listen to the show last couple of weeks, I'm big on that. You need to relax. But if you want to run, then you're right. You're going to get in there, eat and leave. And it's not an experience then, but you do pick up some speed. So
I think that's because people aren't good at math. And I don't think that it's often that people are intentionally leaving bad tips. It's that they don't know how to do it. And so what happens is you're familiar with when you're paying, they usually provide you 3 options for technically 15%, 18%, 20%, and other. So if you want something other than one of those options, you have to manually enter it. If I have a piece of paper in front of me,
so that's why
I
tips
just
are
scribble
higher.
in whatever I want. You get $2 and it was a $50 meal, and it's like, oh, that's not.
So since you're limiting my choices, and I'm looking to get out in a hurry, then my minimum is
path
15.
of least resistance, right? Path of least,
which is better than my minimum if I'm leaving it myself.
Yep.
Didn't think of it that way, but I can see that. But for me, when they give me that, my reaction is fine. You get 15%. If I get to do it myself, I'll leave you 20 or 30. But so, your friendly redneck liberal is going to be a worse tipper if this becomes the norm.
Going along with this is goodbye to paper. Many restaurants, for reasons during the pandemic, went away from physical menus altogether, or they went to disposable paper menus. In other words, the days of that big, heavy menu being handed out to you may very well be going by the wayside, because, of course, the reason they did it during the pandemic was a cleanliness concern of, if we're handing all these menus out, there's a lot of people touching the same thing. We have to clean them all between every single person that comes in. And they didn't want to deal with that. So a lot of them went to a digital menu. Having talked to restaurateurs, obviously the appeal of this is pretty clear. They can make menu updates on the fly anytime. There's no reprinting. It's easy to change prices. And there's no dealing with the physical nature of all these menus. I would be surprised if this doesn't stick around, because again, the benefits are in the favor of the restaurant. It makes their life and their bottom line a little bit better.
And if everybody's doing it, that's what you're just going to have to do if you're going out for the experience. Yours truly will be staying at home more often.
Quickly, physical space for digital orders. No surprise here. We've talked about in just the last 2 things, online ordering's way up, people carrying out, taking things to go. So restaurants are dedicating spaces so that you can come in, grab what you ordered and go. I have now seen this at a couple of restaurants I have been at. I have only ever used the experience one time, but it was exactly like you would expect, which is kind of odd. You ordered everything and it's all paid for, so you walk in and there's a shelf and there's orders with your name on it, and you just grab it and leave, and you don't ever talk to anybody.
Hey, and that's all anybody worries about anymore. There's no human interaction. We have a phone and a device, and I don't need humans. Wait a minute. Don't we do all that mental health stuff, though, where mental health is screwy? But never mind. That's not today's show. But I wonder why. No human interaction.
You need the interaction, at least sometimes. But fewer options on menus. So a lot of what we've been talking about is around the paying, the menus, the online ordering, fewer options on menus. Fine dining customers are going to continue to see more limited menus. During the pandemic, many restaurants switched from an a la carte menu to a set family-style meal, which helped the restaurant better predict and control its food orders. I was just at Red Lobster the other day, Lance, for the first time in a long time that I've physically been in it, and they're known for generally a pretty robust menu. And I was handed a single sheet of paper. It has been substantially pared down, which again, this may be the one that I'm the most object to. I think that, we like to think that we like options, but then I guess as I think about it, do we really like the options, or how likely are it? If you go someplace and you like what's there, you are likely to order probably the same thing almost every time, or 2 or 3 things.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is the one thing I don't have a problem with.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to a certain restaurant, I know what I want. That's why I chose that restaurant to go there. It's only when I go to a new place, like when my daughters
then you don't need the menus.
When they take me, no, I think ordering, having less thing on there, fine with me, as long as they have what I want. If they don't have what I want, then I get up and go somewhere else. Because it's really hard when you go to a new place and you got to look at all the options. So,
especially depending on who you're with,
if they have
paralyzed by indecision.
If they have fewer options, then it's less time. Well, I usually know what I want. It's the people I go with that have to wait forever. It's like, I'm hungry. So if they don't want me to get hangry,
is this the daughters?
They need to make the decision.
And...
No, the daughters make pretty good decisions. They make pretty quick decisions.
Okay, got it.
It's the wife who goes to Red Lobster and gets the chicken Alfredo that just drives me bananas. Just like, are you kidding me? I thought we were coming to Red Lobster. We are. I love their chicken Alfredo. It's Red freaking Lobster. But she always gets chicken Alfredo. And it's like, why are we going to Red Lobster for chicken? For chicken pasta, right? Chicken pasta. You got chicken and Italian, and we're going to a seafood place.
Yep.
It's what she always gets, though. She doesn't need a menu.
You have to ask Brett. I'm the person that, like, we get to the table and I'm like, all right, everybody, look at the menu. Be ready to order because that's my least enjoyable part of the meal is waiting to order. I hate that.
Oh,
I hate that part.
See?
I don't mind after ordering, waiting for the food. Because it's plagued with indecision.
Chill, baby, chill. You just gotta relax. Then you don't like those people who go, well, now if I get this, can I substitute this? And well, how rare is a rare steak? Do I want it medium or rare? Do you have baked potatoes or do you have fries? Oh. What do you have? You have baked, you have both.
Everything that was already spelled out on the menu, but now we're going to talk about it.
Do you have a sweet potato? Oh, you have that too. Huh. Okay. Well, I think I'll have a green salad. Those people drive you nuts?
We went through all the options and now we're not going to have any of those. No, but the thing that usually drives me crazy is, and yes, this may be directed at my husband, it doesn't matter if we have 2 minutes or 10 minutes. We're not going to be ready to order whenever they come. So I would rather not wait because it won't do any good to have waited longer. Because when they get here, it'll be, well, what do you want? And it's like, well,
our indecision comes with picking the place we're going.
Okay.
Usually once we get the place,
then it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's getting the place that's the hard part. Okay, well, more to talk about. You can see restaurants occupy all of us in one way or another, right? Dining outdoors, drinks to go, merch kits, and more. And getting rid of tips? Big things to talk about. Keep it here on The State of Us, and we'll be right back.
We are The State of Us. Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
Big changes to the restaurant industry as it roars back. Outdoor dining space is going to continue to be in demand, even for fine dining restaurants that used to balk at al fresco seating. I'm good with this. I mean, this is fine. I like to sit outside if it's not, crazy hot or if there's not a lot of bugs. Great.
Wait, come on. You live in the Midwest. It's either crazy hot or we got a lot of bugs unless it's winter. You just said the two things why I don't like to eat outside.
Yeah.
My wife loves to eat outside. I said, I don't want to fight the flies for my food. And I don't want to be sweating into my food either. So when I visited California or Florida in the winter, it's nice to sit outside. No bugs. And it's 65, 70 degrees.
Pleasant.
But it's not that way in the Midwest ever. I like sitting outside as long as it's not too hot.
We had one or two weeks in the spring we get.
Yeah, exactly.
We're eating outside.
I don't think they're going to stay in business that way. Maybe my restaurant will, because I've always said I want to open up a restaurant. Mm-hmm. And the name of the restaurant is I Don't Care. Because that's the answer I got for 30 years plus of marriage. I don't care. So I'm going to open a restaurant with that. And so every time a spouse or a child
where do you want to go? I don't care.
I don't care. They're going to come to my restaurant.
I love it.
Yeah.
Great. Drinks to go. Now this may seem odd.
This is huge.
But
my daughters are big with this.
This is major.
They really liked this when this happened. This determined where they would go to eat when I was talking to them on the phone. If they were busy and not cooking at home and needed to pick something up after a stressful day at work, this was a huge decision maker for them when the state of Ohio said you could start. Now, they limited the number but carry out alcohol drinks. Yes.
Yep. Well, part of the reason it's a big deal, let's provide some context for folks that don't fully understand. But Lance and I know a gentleman who owns a local restaurant here in town called Lincoln in Maine. And they've made it clear, like many, especially independently owned restaurants, their business is on the alcohol. The drinks, that's where they make the money. That's where they
make the profit.
Because there's much better margin there than there is on most of the food. The food is very labor intensive to make. It's small profit margin. It's a very tight business. So this is super important to them. And if this makes it possible for them now to continue to do it after the pandemic is over, I'm sure that restaurants are going to be pleased about this. And it sounds like people are going to be, people may be more likely to order takeout, take it home and eat with people if they can get the drinks that the restaurant would usually make and take them with them. So it'll be interesting to see how that works, if that has any, permanent impact on dining in.
36 states have started to allow this, according to the article. 7 now have made it permanent. So I think that's the interesting thing, is it seems like, majority of states have allowed this to happen. And 7, 20% of the ones that are allowing it to happen have said, you know what? It's like you said, Justin, it's working so well, we're going to make it permanent.
Drinks to go are definitely interesting. What do you think about it, though? Send us an email, podcast@thestateofus.org. Podcast@thestateofus.org. We'd like to hear from you. One of the other things, this is kind of interesting, is making money off of things that restaurants don't usually make money off of. Merch, kits, and packaged foods. This one's pretty straightforward. It's all the miscellaneous stuff. Like, for example, how you can buy, if you're familiar with Red Lobster and their biscuits, right? You can buy the recipe stuff at Kroger or something like that. Well, now there's small restaurants that are doing this too, right? We got this prepackaged stuff, or here's this spice thing that you like. You can take it home. You can buy a t-shirt from our restaurant.
These people don't eat at my wife's favorite restaurant.
No?
Cracker Barrel.
Oh.
Cracker Barrel, the visit to Cracker Barrel includes a 30-minute visit to shop.
To the gift shop.
Yes.
Yes.
Where there's candy and soda and clothes and games and
everything.
There's all kinds of things there. So some of these people are way behind. Cracker Barrel's been on top of this from the get-go.
If you're looking for that all-inclusive experience, Cracker Barrel. Clean and clean again. Not surprising that this is staying ultra sanitizing. Obviously started to take place during the pandemic. I mean,
it's going to make everybody feel safe. If somebody's walking around with a spray bottle and wiping stuff down, it's going to put you in the mood to feel safe that you're going to eat. You may not be, but it's going to make you feel that way. So you'll enjoy your food more.
As long as it doesn't increase drastically the cost of everything, it's certainly not going to hurt anything. So taking care of workers, though, these last two are the big ones, taking care of workers and tipping the pay scales. So the taking care of workers is, if you've ever worked in the food service industry, that's really not a thing that happens. There's no paid time off or insurance or retirement. Like, those are just, no, that's not how that works. However, a lot of restaurants were just faced with a reality during the pandemic that they didn't have anybody else to hire. And with worker shortages, I think that's accelerating this now as well. Pandemic's over, right? We get past this whole thing. We're still going to have the issue of there's not enough people to work. So these next two things, I think, are very much in line with, we have to make it more attractive for people to work here, which, yes, means that eating at restaurants will cost more, but with some of the cost-saving measures they've implemented, you hope that it won't be too drastic.
One restaurant owner here in the article says he's seen a 5% increase in what it costs to keep his workers. So guess where that cost is going to get passed on to? Your favorite meal or your favorite beverage or whatever. So
that's why they got to sell the t-shirts now, right? Is to make up for that, because it has to come from somewhere.
You're talking about half my wardrobe.
Yeah. Wherever
I eat, I get the t-shirt. Gotta represent.
Tipping the pay scales. This possibly the most notable one.
This is a big one to me.
Of all of them. For those of you that don't know, we are kind of weird in that that our laws basically assume that tipping is part of how people get paid, right? In food industry, because it's basically not like that in any other industry in the United States. It's like the only thing is food. That's where we expect food service is where we expect that. The thing that's interesting here is, for example, one restaurant during the pandemic eliminated tipping and mandated a 15% service charge on all checks. So you didn't have an option. You're going to eat here. You're going to pay a 15% service charge. That's just what it is. And it's divided between staff based on a point system tracking tenure and responsibility. And that's across the board. That's front of house and back of house. That's your waiters, waitresses, and your cooks and your chefs. Where previously, some restaurants had already been flirting with this. We had talked about it some over the years on the State of Us. The back of house usually kind of gets a little...
They get the short end of the stick.
Yeah, that's nicer than what I was going to say. But yes, because they usually don't get to partake in the tips, or they don't take an equal percentage. They get, 10% or whatever. And some places don't mandate it at all. It's just if the servers feel like they should, they do it, So I think it creates more equity across the board. I think it also eliminates some of the hit and miss nature of what happens, unfortunately, where people do not tip at all or tip poorly. There's probably something to be said for, another episode, another discussion, just trying to eliminate tipping altogether, and push for, pay people for the service that they're giving you and don't rely on the customers to do it. At the same time, the nature of tipping is nice in that, if you feel people do a good job, it would be nice to be able to give them extra, right?
Everybody's going to be the same. Everybody going to be average. So then the experience won't be special, or you won't ask for that certain table where you can get the waiter or waitress, the server that you want. Because I have places where I go there, and if I looked and I ask, is so-and-so working tonight? Yes. Okay, I'll wait 10 extra minutes or whatever so that I can go to their table because they do an exceptional job. Well, if you take that out, that doesn't exist anymore. So then where's the incentive to do a good job if you're an employee? But the interesting thing is, a couple different restaurant owners in the article said, don't be surprised if the average menu price in the restaurants that you go to will go up a minimum of 20% on your favorite dishes to pay for what it's going to cost us to employ people in this. And again, I don't necessarily have a problem with this because I think for years now, it's been almost cheaper. Depends on where you go, of course, not the high-end restaurants. But it's almost cheaper to eat out than it is to go to the grocery store, buy fresh food, and cook it at home. And therein lies another episode about health and well-being of individuals when it's cheaper to pick up a fast food meal than it is to go home and cook something healthy. So I'm all for...
choice is easy.
Exactly.
For most people, right?
I'm all for prices going up so that it would encourage people to eat at home. I think that is a good thing for our society all the way around. So I don't have for a lot of people, that's going to say, oh my gosh, you're coming out of the pandemic when you had to cook for yourself anyway, in most houses, right? And we know that people did more cooking in the last 12 to 15 months than they have previously. Why not just continue that?
Your friendly redneck liberal, folks. No, I think one thing I'll leave people with, I guess, on this to chew on, right, is the idea that if we take better care of workers and we eliminate tipping altogether and or introduce some kind of mandatory gratuity, right, that is then distributed evenly across the board, in either situation, I think if you're doing both, you may not see a drop in service. You may actually see an increase, right? Because it's rewarding to work for the tips, but at the end of the day, if you have good health care and you know that showing up sick's not going to be the end of your job, those things may matter. Those things may matter more, right? And you may be able to attract better people and keep people longer, all of which should result in better service, right? Just because they're happier at their job and better taken care of, rather than, well, I made an extra $80 tonight, but that's not, you add that up over the month and that's not going to be enough to cover the cost of healthcare. So yeah, I don't know. There's more to explore there, I guess. We've talked about it for a long time. Restaurants are going to play with it, and I'm sure legislation will follow. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. What about cars, though? Used cars. You're going to be paying a lot. And why is that? Well, to find out, keep it here on The State of Us, and we'll be right back.
We are The State of Us. Here's your host, Justin T. Weller.
The average price for a pre-owned vehicle hit a record of $25,463 in April, about $2,800 higher than in the same month last year, according to J.D. Power. And this is notable because shoppers are also paying top dollar for new cars and trucks, as automakers and dealers that are on thin stock pare back their discounts. The average price paid for a new model climbed to a near record of $37,572 per vehicle in April, which is up about 7% from a year earlier, according to J.D. Power. And of course, this surge, for those of you that have been following the news or those of you that haven't, is because of the global chip shortage, which is straining inventories on the new car side and leading more consumers to shop the pre-owned market. So that whole age-old adage, right? You want to save the money, go buy the pre-owned. That's your dealer terminology, right? We don't have used cars here. We have pre-owned vehicles. You go buy your pre-owned vehicles here. No, not necessarily. I told Lance before the show, it is unfathomable to me, although it is reality, that the vehicle sitting outside right now, which I bought about a month ago, I actually bought it for less. Now, granted, I had a trade-in, but I actually paid less money for the vehicle than I could now go trade it in for.
Yep.
Think about that.
It's not usually worth more than what you paid for.
Almost never, right?
I mean, the old adage, you drove it off the lot and it already depreciated before you got to the first stoplight. So, but it's interesting that the sale of used vehicles hit 3.4 million, up 58% from the year before. So again, there's capitalism at work, right? It's that the demand is up, so the supply is low, so therefore prices go up. That's just what happens. And part of that reason is, as they say, there's two reasons that the article gives. One is that people are holding on to their leased cars longer. And that's a big proponent of used cars. Somebody, those of you who lease, I never did lease because of the mileage stipulations, and I like to drive too much. So it never was, the lower price wasn't conducive because I was going to pay the extra on the back end for the miles that I drove.
Not for people who hit the open road.
But for people who, I know people who lease and, they save $100, $200 a month on their car payment to lease. And then every 2 years, the other side of leasing is every couple of years, you get a new vehicle, and people liked that, but now during the pandemic, people hung on to those, but those would become the used cars, the pre-owned cars. This car's only had one owner, and look, it's got, 15,000 miles on it, and it's, 3 models years old. You can get it a whole lot cheaper than the brand new one, but people are holding on to their leases. So that limits the number of used cars. And the biggest place where we've seen it is with rental cars, because people, if you've ever vacationed and gotten a rental car, those are then sold as used cars. I mean, either by the rental company, or dealers will have a working agreement with the local rental car companies and say, okay, we'll buy your older stock because it's a good way to get cars that have been maintained and, maintenanced well, and sell them. But the rental car firms are like, yeah, we're not getting rid of any of our cars because people are going to start traveling, and all of a sudden our cars are going to be in demand. So you put those two things together, people holding on to their leases longer, rental car companies not looking to get rid of their inventory. All of a sudden, supply is low on a used car, which drives up prices. Makes sense, but it makes it tough on people who need a reliable vehicle to get to their job.
It is amazing. U.S. sales of used vehicles hit 3.4 million in April, which is up 58% from a year earlier, according to TrueCar, which is a car shopping website. And so it's trickling down, right, in a lot of ways. I mean, the price, supply and demand, right? There's not enough available inventory of both new and used cars. So the prices of all of them are going up. And it's not that they're pricing used or new vehicles higher, it's that the discounts aren't there, right? Which is basically the same thing.
Well, because again, there's no reason for them to offer you a discount because they don't have any new cars on their lot either. So it's like, I got 10 cars here and I got 15 people who want to buy them. So I don't need to offer you an incentive to buy it, because typically about this time of the year, you start to see the incentives because a dealership has 100 vehicles on its lot and they have 10 strong customers. So they need foot traffic. They need people to come in, or looking on the internet or whatever. They need people to start looking to buy some of these cars so that they can make room for the new models coming out in October. But nobody's, there aren't that many cars out there and there's nobody wanting to buy them. So there's no reason, and there's more people who want it than there are cars available. No reason to offer incentive. You're going to pay full price.
One of the things that's going to be interesting to see in the coming years, this post-pandemic world, right, is we've also seen the acceleration of electric vehicles becoming available. And I think that it's going to disrupt things in a number of ways, but some of the disruptions that we're not talking about, Lance, are in the used car side of things. One of the benefits to electric vehicles is that they don't wear out as fast. They don't need as much service.
See, that maybe I should get into the electric car thing, because then people would have to learn to take life a little slower, because they're going to have to wait for their batteries to charge before they can take off and drive again. So there's going to be more downtime. So maybe instead of being a naysayer I'm really not a naysayer on electric cars. The way I drive.
Skeptical.
No, the way I drive, we don't have the infrastructure in place for me to enjoy driving an electric car.
I think the infrastructure, and is mostly there. The problem is that there are not enough model cars out yet that can take advantage of the infrastructure. And what do I mean by that? Well, I have been to 350 kilowatt chargers. And to give you some perspective, the vehicle I drive has a 65 kilowatt battery. So you would say, well, oh my gosh, that's like instant, right? I mean, you plug it in and you're done. No, the technology in the car doesn't let it charge any faster than 50 kilowatts. So even though I got a 350 kilowatt charger sitting over here that exists right now today, the charger's there. It can do it. The car can't do it. The technology's there. It's just, it's delayed, right? Because you can want it all you want, but they've planned it for 2 or 3 model years out, because that's when they can get it into production and release the new vehicles. So it's just one of those, there's this lag, I think, right now. And yes, there needs to be more chargers, but really the main thing is the cars. There needs to be cars that can take advantage of the power that's available so that you can charge quickly, right?
Either way, if I'm going to have to spend 2 hours waiting to fuel up, I'm not going to buy an electric car. That's the bottom line.
Lack of patience
for yours truly. There where, I have some patience.
Not that much.
But I don't have that much patience. I mean, I have some things I could do, but not that long, because if I'm out in the car, I usually have a tighter schedule than that.
5 minutes for the check at the end of the meal, not a big deal. 2 hours in the car, not so great.
Not as good a deal. I'm not tipping for that 2 hours.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Install tips for your charge ports, your AI.
But if I get a charger, if I can hook up and in less than 5 minutes, I can get a full charge and go another 300 miles, I might leave a tip.
I think the point is, right, that stuff's coming. And when it does, you're going to have people like Lance who are holding off for no other reason, right? No concern other than the way they drive, the places they go. They don't want to be limited by those things. Even if it's rare, even if we all accept that the vast majority of our driving is never like that, it's that, belief of freedom and convenience, which will, truly hold a lot of people back. And once that's eliminated, and you have more people owning these cars, the question is, are our habits going to change? If my car is really, truly perfectly fine for 10 years, am I going to be okay keeping the car for 10 years?
But the freedom is the reason why the car industry grew in the first place. Having that freedom and independence is the reason why automobiles became a big thing in the United States. So when you say, well, as soon as we take care of the freedom, when you do that, then I can say, well, let's just all go to mass transit. If there's no freedom and independence, there's no reason to own an individual vehicle.
And that's probably the biggest reason that the charging infrastructure
but now 2 generations from now, that may not be an issue. You know, for the people who haven't been born yet, when they get to be my age, they're going to say, when they're listening to this show, you know, and you know, they're downloading it off of whatever, and they say, what the old people say back in 2021. They're like, what's he talking about? Freedom and independence. There's no such thing. We don't have that. We all live the same. We're all equal, and we have UBI, and I don't have to work. And so why is everybody in a hurry? And we're all under one world order, and there is no different government, and we all belong to the United States now, like Justin wants us to be. And
took a deep turn there all of a sudden. So, okay. That's what happens, folks, when you eliminate car freedom. Is
there's no freedom and independence.
It's all gone.
What else is there?
It's all gone.
That's
right. Yeah. No, the automated vehicle, right? We didn't even talk about that.
We didn't even talk about freedom and independence then. You can do whatever you want because the car takes you. You got a cab 24/7.
That's right. So what do you think? Send us an email, podcast@thestateofus.org, podcast@thestateofus.org. Restaurants are sort of roaring back, but some big changes underway. And the pandemic not only hit the restaurant industry, but of course, hit the car industry, which is accelerating and forcing some changes, making us rethink those used cars. Maybe we get a new one, maybe an electric one, if it allows you enough freedom. So Lance, why do we have this conversation today? What was the point of all this?
We had a tremendous conversation today, and I enjoyed it.
Was it hospitable?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was hospitable and very solicitous.
Okay.
But our mission here at True Chat is to have one of these every time we go on the air and educate people by providing these honest, open, and respectful conversations. And if you've enjoyed today's conversation and you think it's been honest and open and respectful, let True Chat know. Send them an email. And more importantly, tell your family and friends that this is a great place to get to listen to these conversations. And they can find us on Spotify, Overcast, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere podcasts are found.
New episodes of The State of Us Tuesdays and Thursdays by 4 a.m. Eastern Time as a podcast. You can also hear us on the weekends in select talk radio markets around the country. For The State of Us on True Chat in Urbana, Ohio, I'm Justin T. Weller.
I'm Lance Jackson.
Special thanks to our producer, Bradley Butch, and thank you all, our audience, for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Be the change. Be sure to check out our website, thestateofus.org, for books, articles, and all the ways to tune in. thestateofus.org.